Good morning. My name is DJ Ennis, and welcome to Vote Right for America. In episode 14, I covered judicial powers as presented in Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution, as well as some good and badly decided court cases that impacted our nation. I pointed out that it's best to have good, originalist, conservative judges and justices on our courts, especially on the Supreme Court. And the only way we can have those kind of judges and justices is to vote in presidents and senators who are also conservative. That means no voting for Democrats, socialists, or communists, because they'll make up stuff that's not really in the Constitution, stuff that brings on bad, intrusive government. In this episode, I'll cover Article 4 of the U.S. Constitution to discuss with you its meaning, and then I'll cover some current events that may potentially affect the operative aspects of Article 4. Article 4, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution states, "Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state, and the Congress may by general laws prescribe the manner in which such acts, records, and proceedings shall be proved, and the effect thereof." Essentially, this means that different states in the Union will recognize certain valid public acts conferred on its people from one state to the next. For example, legally binding agreements and contracts made in one state is binding in other states. A person who owes money when he lived in one state and leaves that state is still a debtor to his creditors in the state in which he has moved. Probate of estates determined in one state is accepted in other states. A marriage recognized in one state is recognized in another. Adoptions finalized in one state are valid in other states. A divorce decree in one state is accepted in other states. Visitation rights established in one state is valid in the state in which an ex-spouse has moved. Child support decreed in one state is recognized as a legal obligation of the person who has moved to another state. If a person is convicted of a crime in one state, he's considered a criminal in other states. Article 1, which covers legislative powers, laid out a number of items and areas that Congress could legislate for the United States government in sections 8 through 10. Some of these items had been powers states once had under the former Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation was a lengthy mess at the beginning of our young country in the 1780s, which was replaced with the U.S. Constitution. Those powers the states once had went to the federal government, but the states were still left with many powers. The Founding Fathers truly believed that people were citizens of the state first and foremost, and citizens of the United States overall. James Madison, in defending the newly written Constitution in Federalist Paper No. 45, wrote, "The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. The former will be exercised principally on external objects as war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce, with which the last power of taxation will, for the most part, be connected. The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all the objects which, in the ordinary course of affairs, concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state." Article 4, Section 2 states, "The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states." This just simply means that citizens of each state will be treated as citizens of the other states while they're there. There'll be no special status or lesser treatment because you're from another state. The next part, or clause of Section 2 in Article 4 states, "A person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crime, who shall flee from justice and be found in another state, shall, on demand of the executive authority of the state from which he fled, be delivered up to be removed to the state having jurisdiction of the crime." This was the basis for extradition. If a person leaves or flees another state in order to evade being prosecuted for a crime, whether that person has been indicted or not, can be delivered to the state where the alleged crime occurred. This is a procedure that must occur. Governing authorities in one state have to formally request that the accused person who was found to be in the other state be extradited or held for transfer back to the state from which he came in order to face charges. The next clause in Section 2 states, "No person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered upon claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due." With the ratification of the 13th and 14th Amendments, this clause is no longer valid. This was a section that dealt with slavery. At the time this was written, slavery was a universal activity. Many of the founding fathers knew that slavery was counterintuitive for a nation that was founded on the principles of freedom. But there were people who possessed slaves, especially in the southern states like Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia. Please understand something here. The New York Times 1619 project that insinuates that America's exceptionalism was based on slavery is wrong. Actually, slaves had been in the New World long before 1619. According to Rue Wood, an instructor at Indian Hills Community College in Iowa, the slaves that arrived in Jamestown, Virginia colony in 1619 were pirated from a Portuguese slave ship bound for Mexico. The British pirates involved, flying a Dutch flag, took on 20 Bantu-speaking Africans from Angola who more than likely were Christian converts and transported them to Jamestown. Most people in Jamestown at that time were indentured servants, people who were contracted to work for the planters without pay for an agreed upon number of years, like 5 to 7, in exchange for their transatlantic passage. Those 20 people from Africa also entered into an agreement with the planters and eventually worked off their indenture and obtained their freedom. Section 3 of Article 4 states, "New states may be admitted by the Congress into this Union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the junction of two or more states or parts of states without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned as well as the Congress." This is pretty much straightforward. People in certain territories may want to form a state and be part of the United States. This has happened many times throughout American history. In order to become a state, Congress has to approve. In 1905, a constitution was written to establish the state of Sequoia in Indian Territory, the eastern part of present-day Oklahoma. The Constitutional Convention was held in Muskogee, Indian Territory, with delegations consisting of Cherokees, Choctaws, Chickasaws, Muskogee Creeks, Seminoles, and Whites. The proposed state of Sequoia's constitution and petition to Congress was approved in November 1905 by the voters in Indian Territory, but Congress rejected the petition. It was understood with the passage of the 1890 Oklahoma Organic Act that statehood might occur for combined Oklahoma Territory and Indian Territory. With President Theodore Roosevelt's prompting, the two territories united, formulated a constitution, and petitioned Congress. Oklahoma was recognized as a state on November 16, 1907. There have been discussions about splitting the state of California up for decades. At first, people in certain parts of California wanted to create a new state to separate themselves from the rest of California because the people in those areas believed that they were being ignored by the elected officials serving at the state capitol in Sacramento, especially when it came to roads and other matters of infrastructure. Lately, there have been proposed splits along political economic philosophy lines, with the more conservative rural areas desiring to become independent of the more liberal urban areas. So far, no statewide broad approval to split up California has been approved by the people by referendum or by the state legislature. Even then, Congress would have to approve on top of that. Now, this brings us to Section 4 of Article 4, which reads, "The United States shall guarantee to every state in this Union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion, and on application of the legislature or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened, against domestic violence." When it talks about a republican form of government, it's not talking about a political party, but a form or style of government. Many people carelessly refer to the United States as a democracy. This is not a democracy, certainly not in its purest form. The United States is a republic, meaning we have a representational form of government. Some officials, largely the legislature, are directly elected in democratic fashion, but the rest are placed in office in representative of or republic form, such as the President of the United States, who is chosen by electors, and the justices on the Supreme Court, who are nominated by or chosen by the President and confirmed or approved by the Senate. Article 4, Section 4 begins with making it clear that not only will the United States of America will be a republic, but all states will be as well. Section 4 ends with another guarantee. It promises that the United States will defend each state from invasions, from enemy attacks, as well as ensure that a state will be protected from domestic violence, like from riots. This is what Article 4 of the United States Constitution is about. We need a guard against anything that would disrupt state-to-state relations. We need to make sure that we don't do away with our republic concepts, like doing away with the electoral system as described in Article 2 of the Constitution, that method which the President of the United States has chosen. We need to be vigilant to remind our state legislatures, for those of us who live in states that have not approved the foolish national popular vote interstate compact, to avoid living under the tyranny of the constitutionally unaware, economically clueless majority who reside in blue states. Already, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, populous blue states like California, New York, and Illinois are calling out for the federal government to financially bail them out. California state officials once projected they would have a $21 billion surplus, but because of the economic difficulties caused by the pandemic-driven shutdowns and California government's refusal to back down spending for coddling illegal immigrants, California is looking at a $54 billion deficit for the next year. New York has been in deficit spending for a number of years and have, with their careless higher taxes, driven many well-to-do people and certain businesses out of their state. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo wants a $61 billion federal bailout. Just like the other blue states, their government officials have a problem with overindulgent spending habits. In April, Governor Cuomo publicly dared Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to refuse bills that would provide federal bailout money to them. I say, call their bluff. Don't bail them out. Maybe the voters in California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and Connecticut can take this as an opportunity to throw out the Democratic leadership with expensive spending traits and elect people who can take on the responsibility and huge task of straightening out their state's finances. If they don't, it's their lost opportunity. You're watching Vote Right for America. Please subscribe to this vlog. It's free. And you can also email me with your comments and questions at vrfa.djennis@gmail.com. And please comment. I'll use your comments and questions to clear up matters or concerns you have in future episodes. Good morning.